I am proud to say I am a supporter of Ibrahim Traoré and the leather revolution in Burkina Faso. In an era where politicians only know how to make empty promises, he has acted with bold decisions and concrete results. While the world only knows how to criticize Africa for its poverty and backwardness, Burkina Faso has proven itself with astounding achievements. I am not afraid to admit my bias in this story, because bias is sometimes fairness when we witness a nation rising from the world's contempt. The leather revolution I am about to tell you about has not only changed the destiny of a nation, but has also challenged the entire global economic system that has exploited Africa for centuries. To understand why Ibrahim Traoré's decision to ban the export of raw hides was so monumental, we must go back to the 1960s, when Burkina Faso had just gained independence. For the past 60 years, the country has been trapped in a typical colonial economic model, exporting raw materials at low prices, then importing processed products at prices 20 to 30 times higher. The leather industry is a prime example of this exploitation. Burkina Faso has a livestock population of 22 million, including 9 million cattle, one of the largest herds in West Africa. Each year, it exports about 1.8 million tons of raw hides to Europe and Asia for just $2 to $3 per kilogram. What is the impact of this? Burkina Faso earns only about $180 million from selling raw materials, while factories in Italy, Turkey, and China process these hides into bags, shoes, and jackets worth up to $15 billion. This exploitative model has persisted for 6 decades, trapping millions of Burkinabe farmers in poverty, despite their possession of one of the world's most valuable raw materials. The second problem concerns technology and skills. For a long time, international development experts insisted that Burkina Faso lacked the capacity to develop a leather processing industry. They said it required advanced technology from Europe, foreign experts, and huge capital investments from international banks. The severity of this dependency was such that 95% of raw hides were exported without undergoing any processing. Compared to other countries in the region, Burkina Faso ranked 47th out of 54 in industrial development and 52nd out of 54 in value added from agriculture. The third problem was related to human resources and vocational education. International organizations constantly reported that Burkina Faso had a severe shortage of skilled labor. They estimated it would take at least 20 to 25 years to train enough leather artisans, designers, and marketing experts to compete with developed countries. The long-term consequence of this was a generation of young people who lost faith in their country's development potential, leading to a wave of youth labor migration to Europe. The opportunity cost was the loss of the most creative minds and skilled hands, exactly what was needed to build a leather industry. For decades, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and development experts asserted that specialization according to comparative advantage was the only path, meaning Burkina Faso should focus on livestock farming and exporting raw hides, leaving the processing to countries with high technology. They presented figures, reports, and recommendations that seemed irrefutable, arguing that developing a processing industry would be economically inefficient and lead to a waste of resources. They were dead wrong, until Ibrahim Traoré appeared and completely changed the game, proving that what international experts called impossible was, in fact, the key to unlocking Africa's true potential. Ibrahim Traoré is not a typical politician or a famous businessman. Born in 1988, he is a young military officer with a bachelor's degree in geology and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Ouagadougou. What is special about Traoré is not his degrees or military experience, but the way he sees problems. Unlike many previous African leaders who sought approval from the West, Traoré has a deep belief in the self-reliance of the African people. He once said, "We are not poor because we lack resources, but because we have not yet learned how to harness our own resources." His rise to power occurred on September 30th, 2022, through a bloodless coup that overthrew the government of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, whom the public believed had failed to address security and economic issues. The circumstances were dire. Security was unstable, the economy was stagnant, and the people had lost faith in the possibility of change. The initial reaction from the international community was cold. The European Union suspended aid, France withdrew its military advisors, and many international organizations began imposing sanctions. When Traoré took office as president, his first message was simple yet resolute. We will no longer wait for anyone to save us. We will save ourselves with the intellect and labor of the Burkinabe people. But unlike the empty promises of past politicians, Traoré had prepared a concrete, scientific, and achievable plan, starting with the revolution in the leather industry. The first phase, named Project Leather Independence, lasting the first 6 months of 2023, aimed to completely ban the export of raw hides and build 50 small and medium-sized leather processing workshops across the country. The method was based on mobilizing domestic resources, using traditional techniques combined with simple technology, training local artisans, and utilizing locally available tanning materials like mangrove bark and mimosa leaves. The necessary resources were not capital from international banks, but the active participation of 15,000 livestock herding households and 8,000 traditional artisans. The expected outcome was an 80% reduction in raw hide exports and the creation of 25,000 new jobs in the first 6 months. The second phase, Value Chain Revolution, running from July 2023 to June 2024, built on the success of the first phase by expanding from 50 small workshops to 200 integrated production facilities, including design and marketing. This expansion was not based on foreign investment, but on reinvesting profits from Phase 1, combined with building a network of cooperatives linking craft villages. The anticipated challenges were competition with imported products and brand building, which were addressed by focusing on the high quality and uniqueness of Burkinabe leather products, along with a Made in Burkina Faso with Pride marketing strategy. The third phase, Global Leather Hub, with a 5 to 10-year vision, aims to transform Burkina Faso into Africa's premier center for high-end leather goods, supplying the global market. This vision includes exporting processed leather products to Europe, Asia, and the Americas at a value 50 times greater than that of raw hides. The expected international impact is to become a model for other African nations in developing their agro-processing industries. Sustainability is ensured through the establishment of specialized leather universities, research and development centers, and an international quality certification system. And the most important thing that makes all the difference, it would all be done by the people of Burkina Faso, with the resources and intellect of Burkina Faso. No aid from the World Bank to buy expensive machinery, no high-interest loans from the IMF, no dependence on complex Western technology that they could control, no need for foreign experts to come and teach them a craft their ancestors had practiced for hundreds of years. And then, on March 15, 2023, the miracle began when Traoré signed the official decree banning the export of raw hides, marking the beginning of the largest leather revolution in African history. March 15, 2023, will be recorded as the day Burkina Faso changed forever. There were no loudspeakers blaring from government agencies, no top-down propaganda typical of authoritarian regimes, no threats or coercion. There was only a simple message passed from mouth to mouth, from village to village, from one herding family to another: our hides, our jobs, our profits. The people's reaction was more immediate and powerful than even Traoré had imagined. They didn't just support it, they actively participated with an incredible spirit of enthusiasm. In Kadiogo province, home to the country's largest livestock center, the people's first action was to voluntarily organize into 150 cooperative groups, each consisting of 20 to 30 herding families. The number of participants in the first week alone reached 4,500 households, representing about 22,000 people. The tools and materials they used were mostly what was available: traditional hide-scraping knives, wooden vats for soaking hides, mimosa bark for tanning, and most importantly, the skilled hands passed down through generations. The immediate result in the first week was the production of 2,000 high-quality tanned hides instead of selling 2,000 raw hides for a pittance as before. Their work ethic can be summed up in the words of Mr. Amadou Ouedraogo, a 45-year-old rancher. For the first time in my life, I feel that my work has real value. In Hawat Province, a region famous for its traditional crafts, the unique characteristic was that they focused not only on tanning, but also immediately on designing and sewing finished products. Mrs. Fatimata Sawadogo, a 38-year-old seamstress with 15 years of experience, shared, "Before, I could only sew simple cloth bags that sold for 5,000 CFA. Now, with high-quality leather from our village, I can create premium leather bags that sell for 50,000 CFA. My family's life has completely changed." A touching detail was that upon hearing about the project, the mothers in the village voluntarily organized free vocational classes for the youth with the motto, "Teach our children our ancestral craft so they don't have to work as hired labor far from home." The initial local challenge was coordinating between the tanners and the sewers, but they solved it by creating family production chains. Each family was responsible for one stage, from tanning to design, cutting, and finishing. In Bazega province, the region with the second largest cattle herd, the scale of participation was even more impressive, with 6,800 livestock herding households joining in the first month. The unique contribution of this region was the development of an original logistics system to transport hides and products between villages using bicycles, motorcycles, and even traditional ox carts. Connections with other regions were made through a network of weekly markets where leather products from many villages were traded, techniques were learned, and orders were shared. What was astonishing was not just the scale or the speed of implementation, but the spontaneous spirit of unity among the people. No one gave orders, no one supervised, yet they automatically coordinated with each other like a single organism, sharing techniques, supporting with materials, and solving difficulties together. Perhaps the smallest but most touching story is that of the family of Mr. Burema Sana, a 52-year-old poor farmer in the village of Tanghin. Previously, he could only sell a cowhide for 15,000 CFA, with a profit of only about 3,000 CFA after costs. His wife, Aminata, was a skilled craftswoman, but only knew how to make simple products. When they heard about the Leather Revolution project, the entire family decided to completely change their business. Mr. Burema learned how to tan high-quality leather, while Mrs. Aminata learned to design modern handbags from instructional videos. Their motivation to participate was simple. We want our children to have a better future, not to have to drop out of school to become hired labor. Their concrete action was to spend the first 3 months learning the craft, the next 2 months perfecting their technique, and by the 6th month, they were able to produce 20 high-end leather bags per month, each selling for 35,000 CFA. Mr. Borema shared his feelings. "For the first time in my 52 years, I feel proud of my work, not because of making a lot of money, but because of the feeling of creating real value with my own hands." But the leather revolution wasn't just about emotion or spirit. It was about science, organization, and operational efficiency at a level that surprised even international experts. The resource distribution system was organized in a hub-and-spoke model. Each province had a large center responsible for supplying tanning materials, basic tools, and technical training to 15 to 20 satellite villages. The division of labor was based on the principle of flexible specialization. Each village focused on developing its strongest stage, tanning, cutting, design, or marketing, but still maintained the ability to perform all stages to ensure self-sufficiency. Coordination between groups was done through weekly meetings, mobile phone networks, and most importantly, a system of village representatives, respected and experienced individuals elected to be liaisons between communities. When disagreements or problems arose, Conflict resolution was handled according to the tradition of community mediation, with the participation of village elders and representatives from the relevant groups. The simple technology used included $500 semi-automatic leather cutters instead of $50,000 industrial machines, solar-powered leather drying systems instead of electric ovens, and tanning techniques using natural substances available locally instead of expensive imported chemicals. The use of available resources was truly impressive. They used baobab bark as a tanning agent to create softness, shea leaves for natural coloring, and even treated cow dung as a leather softener. Small but highly effective innovations included improving traditional cutting tools, creating standard templates to ensure product consistency, and developing dyeing techniques that produced unique colors only found in Burkina Faso. The information sharing system operated through WhatsApp groups, local radio stations, and regular training sessions taught by the best artisans in the region. The quality assurance was based on a three-tier control system: self-inspection by each artisan, cross-checking among group members, and a final inspection by the most experienced artisans. Measurement and tracking were done by meticulously documenting each product, from the origin of the hide and the processing procedure to the quality of the finished product, creating a biography for each item. The process of adjustment and improvement was continuous through weekly review meetings where everyone shared experiences, small improvements, and ways to fix errors. Transparency was ensured by making all income, expenses, profits, and distribution methods public to the entire participating community. A specific example from the village of Saba in Kadiogo province shows a group of 45 families who built a complete production chain from tanning to finishing. The process was divided into 6 clear steps. Step 1, days 1 to 2, was processing the raw hide, removing impurities, and preparing for tanning. Step 2, days 3 to 7, was soaking the hide in a natural tanning solution made from mimosa bark. Step 3, days 8 to 10, was drying the hide and checking its quality. Step 4, days 11 to 12, was cutting the leather according to design templates. Step 5, days 13 to 15, was sewing and crafting the final product. Step 6, days 16 to 17, was the final quality check and packaging. The initial challenge they faced was coordinating the timing between steps, as some stages depended on weather and natural conditions. The solution they found was to create a flexible production schedule with contingency plans for each stage and to create a buffer stock system to ensure continuous production. The measurable results after the first 6 months were truly impressive. In terms of output, from producing only 50 raw hides per month, they increased to 300 high-quality tanned leather products, a 600% increase in quantity and 15 times the value. In terms of income, from 2.5 million CFA per month for the entire village, it increased to 38 million CFA per month, a 1,420% increase in just 6 months. In terms of employment, 180 new jobs were created for young people in the village, reducing the migration rate from 60% to 15%. Compared to the initial expert forecasts that it would take at least 3 to 5 years to see results, the reality showed they achieved their goals within 6 months and far exceeded expectations. Mr. Usman Dao, a 34-year-old tanner with 8 years of experience, shared with an emotional voice, "I can't believe that the hides I used to sell for 3,000 CFA, now after being tanned and made into handbags, can sell for 45,000 CFA. More importantly, my son now proudly tells his friends that his father is a leather artisan, instead of feeling ashamed as before. This revolution has not only changed our wallets, but has also changed our perception of our own self-worth." But this was only the beginning of a larger revolution, as these initial successes created a domino effect that spread throughout Burkina Faso and beyond its borders. September 15th, 2023 will be forever remembered in the history of Burkina Faso and perhaps the world. It was the day of the first Burkina Faso Leather Festival, an event completely self-organized by the people to showcase and sell their leather products. The event was not initiated by the government or any organization, but originated from the idea of leather artisans from 15 provinces who wanted to meet, exchange experiences, and present their products. Why was this so important? Because it was the first time in history that Burkina Faso had an international event created entirely by its own internal strength, without external funding, without foreign expert consultation, but based entirely on the capacity and creativity of its own people. The numbers speak for themselves about the incredible spread of this revolution. The number of participating households increased from the initial 15,000 to 127,000 within 12 months, a 746% increase, with an average of 8,500 new households per month. The export value of processed leather products increased from $0 to $180 million in the first year, while the export value of raw hides decreased from $180 million to just $12 million. This means that Burkina Faso completely reversed its value chain in less than 2 years. The number of new jobs created reached 340,000 direct jobs and approximately 800,000 indirect jobs, mainly in rural areas. Compared to the initial forecast that it would take 10 to 15 years to develop a competitive leather industry, the reality showed that Burkina Faso became the third largest exporter of leather products in West Africa in just 18 months. But the most impressive figures were not the dry economic statistics, but the change in the spirit and consciousness of the people. According to a survey by the University of Ouagadougou, 89% of project participants said they felt proud to be Burkinabe, compared to only 34% before. 76% of rural youth changed their plans to migrate to Europe to stay and develop traditional crafts. Most notably, 94% of participants affirmed their belief in the country's ability to be self-reliant, compared to only 23% in a 2022 survey. Ibrahim Traoré, present at the Leather Festival, said with a voice full of emotion but firm resolve, "Today I see what international organizations called impossible. I see the people of Burkina Faso not just producing leather, but creating art, not just creating products, but restoring national pride. This is not the end, but only the beginning of a journey to prove that Africa can be self-reliant, self-strengthening, and a source of inspiration for the whole world." Within 18 months after the ban on rawhide exports took effect, the changes were visible to the naked eye, spreading across the country like an unstoppable positive wave. Economically, Burkina Faso's GDP grew by 8.7% in 2023, the highest in 15 years, with the leather industry contributing 23% of this growth. The average income of participating households increased from 180,000 CFA francs per month to 850,000 CFA francs per month, a 372% increase. In trade, from importing 100% of processed leather products, Burkina Faso now exports its leather goods to 23 countries, including demanding markets like Japan, Germany, and Canada. The trade balance in the leather sector shifted from a deficit of $170 million to a surplus of $165 million in just 18 months. Foreign investment in the leather sector grew from $0 to $45 million, mainly from other African countries wanting to learn from the Burkina Faso model. Socially, people's lives changed markedly in all basic aspects. For food, 78% of participating families reported they could eat meat and fish regularly instead of only on holidays. For housing, over 60% of families renovated or built new homes, moving from mud huts to sturdy brick houses. For clothing, instead of having only 1 to 2 sets of clothes, each person now has at least 5 to 7 nice outfits, with many even wearing the leather products they made themselves. For transportation, the number of motorcycles in participating villages quadrupled, making the transport of goods and personal travel much more convenient. Education also saw remarkable progress. The school enrollment rate for children in participating families increased from 67% to 96%, as parents could now afford school fees and no longer needed their children to drop out to help with work. The quality of education also improved as many villages voluntarily contributed to building new classrooms and purchasing learning equipment. Notably, vocational schools for leatherworking were established in 12 provinces, attracting students from neighboring countries like Mali and Niger. Health was the area with the most dramatic improvement. Health indicators such as the child malnutrition rate dropped from 32% to 18% in participating communities. The average life expectancy increased by 2.3 years in just 18 months, mainly due to improved nutrition and living conditions. The incidence of poverty-related diseases like tuberculosis and malaria decreased significantly. More importantly, 85% of participating villages voluntarily contributed to building health clinics or purchasing basic medicines. Security and public order also improved significantly. The crime rate in participating areas dropped by 45%, mainly crimes related to poverty such as petty theft. Social safety increased markedly as people had stable jobs and good incomes. In particular, conflicts related to land and water disputes dropped sharply because everyone was busy with their profitable businesses. Let's listen to the personal story of Mrs. Fatimata Diallo, a 42-year-old seamstress from the village of Kubri. Before, my life revolved around sewing simple shirts for 2,000 to 3,000 CFA each. My monthly income was just enough to buy rice and a few vegetables. I was constantly worried about the future, not knowing how I would find money to send my children to school. Now, by switching to sewing high-end leather handbags, I sell each product for 40,000 to 60,000 CFA. My monthly income has increased 15-fold. More importantly, I feel proud of my profession. When I go to the market, people no longer look at me with pity, but with admiration. My daughter now proudly tells her friends that her mother makes the most beautiful bags in the region. My life has completely changed because I realized the true value of my own hands and mind. The before and after images show a world of difference. Where there were once dark, small workshops with a few simple tools, there are now bright, organized production facilities with suitable modern equipment. Instead of damp, foul-smelling piles of raw hides, there are now fragrant, beautifully colored leather products displayed professionally. In the West African region, the reaction of neighboring countries was initially skeptical, then turned to interest, and finally to a desire to learn. Mali sent observation delegations to Burkina Faso 3 times in 2024 and began implementing a similar pilot program for its cotton industry. Niger decided to apply this model to its uranium processing industry, refusing to sell raw uranium to France and starting to develop domestic uranium enrichment technology. Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, 2 countries with stronger economies, also began to consider applying the ban raw material exports model to their cocoa and coffee sectors. Senegal even began.